Hey, I'm here.
Okay. We're just going to go through the presentation as we have it.
Yes, for if they have any questions, you were also supposed to bring your proposed budget that was given out in the last meeting in case you had questions. This one is just an overview and like a summary with pictures and everything to show, what's in the actual budget, the proposed budget.
Are you going to go through the PowerPoint? Yes, ma'am. Hold on just a second. Okay. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll for today? Thank you very much.
Councilmember Shafi.
Here.
Councilmember Martin.
Here.
Councilmember Manica.
Here.
Council Pro Tem Robinson. Council President Thomas.
Here. Thank you very much.
Yes. And we also we're gonna touch some on the general and water budget too. So Mr. Garrett will do any questions or answer any questions about the water part, and then Carl's gonna tackle the general fund.
All right. Want me to screen share for you?
Is the water budget in this?
Yes.
It's in here.
Yes, it is. All right, so as Ms. Eleanor talked about, the budget itself is the document that we delivered last council meeting, I think it was, and it was just for you to have in advance before this meeting to look through and get ready to ask me any questions that you might have. And as a result of requests from you guys, I believe, Ms. Eleanor did put a slideshow together along with Metro with both the general fund and the water and sewer fund, just kind of a high level summary of the budget itself. But the detail is the 30 some pages, I forget how many pages, is 44 pages document, and this is the high level summary. So I will just quickly walk you through some of this. So if you want to flip through, there's our mission, the first page, and then, so on page 4 is the overview of the general fund's total revenues. So it shows 22, 23, 24, and 25. So you can see there, it's a little misleading. The 24 number that you have before you there, that's the original budget that we have right now. It has not been amended. I'm coming before you shortly to amend it. Yes, yep. Yeah, the one that says general fund budget revenue comparison, page 4. So the proposed budget is $13.445 million. The current budget is 12.6. The reason the current budget's a little lower is we weren't exactly sure where our income tax revenue was going to fall in the current fiscal year. There was rumors of one of our industrials closing down, and we had a record last year of a $5.4 million collections. It's the highest we've been since pre-COVID, and we weren't exactly sure what we were going to get there. Property taxes, obviously the 5% increase that we had was a record high last year. And of course, we've got another record high coming for next year. We had some one-time property sales last year. So that's the reason it was a little lower. It's probably closer to the $13.5 million for the current fiscal year. And again, that amendment will be coming before you. But all in all, what the budget is put together, we look at what are our revenues, because obviously that's where we start. This is how much revenue we're going to bring in. And this is basically what we have available to spend. So on the next page is just a breakdown of what makes up our revenues. And so you can see there property taxes, which is kind of your unusual in the way that our revenue is broken down. The majority of cities, you would see property taxes probably make up 50, 60% of the overall revenues. But because we have a city income tax, you can see there our income taxes are truly our largest source of revenues. So we're really dependent on income tax collections, which we do. Our third party does a good job of collecting income taxes. And again, the more new businesses we get here, the larger our income tax revenues are. And again, when the economy turns around, as it has, that's when we see the big increase as well. So income taxes make up about 37%. Property taxes, next largest at 27%. And then state shared revenues, again, our share of the sales tax collected is 25%. So all in all of those make up about 89% of the overall revenues. So when you think about things, we talk about, increased fees or increase in this and increase in that. Really, outside of those big threes, we could double and triple that all the other revenues, and it really wouldn't make a big difference in our overall revenue stream. All right, next page. Just kind of summary over the last 4 years of those major pieces that you see there. Some of the blips that we've had, you can see their income tax in 23 is the yellow bar. And so we were down at 4.5 million and went over 5, dropped a little bit to 4 3/4. And again, we're projecting it goes back over 5. Income tax collections have been very strong this year, and we're predicting that they stay strong as well. The green is revenue sharing. Again, is property taxes. As the property tax, my glasses on here. Yes, green is property taxes. And as we talked about, we've had some new development here as well as record high inflation. So for the previous 20 some years, inflation has averaged about 2.4%. This past year, the current year we're in right now, inflation was 7.6%. And the inflation rate that's going to be used for taxes for the July 1 fiscal year is 5.1. So with Headley, it gets rolled back to 5%. So these past 2 years, we've seen record increases in the percentage that our property taxes can go up, because as you know, the Headley rollback limits the amount our taxes can go up to 5% or inflation. And until these last 2 years, it has never hit 5% under Headley. So again, good news for us, kind of bad news for the taxpayers. But from a revenue stream, from the city standpoint, it's a good thing. Revenue sharing, the states, they give us our annual 2% each year. Even with our census drop, we've still haven't seen a significant decrease in our our revenue sharing from the state of Michigan. The next slide on page 7. This is just all 3 of our components, our revenues and expenses and our fund balance. And so if you look at the very bottom line, the green line, that's our fund balance. It's remained fairly flat. So that's good news and bad news. The good news is previous to 2022, we have been dipping into it, i.e. spending more than we bring in on an annual basis.
Excuse me. Well,
oh, sorry. Hi there.
Please let the record show Council Pro Temp arrived at 6:14.
All right, so like I say, the bottom green line is fund balance. Like I say, it has been slowly increasing, and that's what you want. You want a steady fund balance, i.e. that means we're living within our means on an annual basis. The revenue
looking at, Carl?
On page 7, the green line. So keep going one more.
Never.
That one right there. Yeah, so the bottom green line there is fund balance for this. Again, this is the general fund. So you can see there our fund balance was about $6 million, and it's crept up to a little over $7 million. Is projected to be over $7 million for 24 and 25. And how we get there is we live within our means. And so you can see there in 22, 23, 24, we're spending less than we're bringing in. Some of that is larger than expected revenues, and some of it is just sticking to within our budget. So we've done a good job of doing that. So literally for the past 2 years, I'm anticipating for 24, the year we're in right now, that will be over in about 6 weeks, that we will increase fund balance again, live within our means, and the budget you have before you also anticipates spending no more than the revenues we're bringing in. So those are all very favorable things. The last page related to the general fund is page 8, the next page. It just kind of breaks down the expenditures that we incur by department. And as you would assume, public safety is our largest expenditure. So we're spending about 38% of our budget in public safety. We have a large legal budget here. We still have significant lawsuits going on. So it's about 9% for legal, 19% for DPW. What's that?
Says 21 on here.
Oh, police and fire. Yeah, the blue and the purple together for public safety there. So that's what 38% for the purple and the blue. Sorry, I kind of lumped those two together there. So, and then our debt service is going down. We haven't been issuing on the general fund side, haven't been issued a lot of debt. So you can see that 4% for that. And then obviously there's a lot of other small departments in there. The district court makes up about 6%, et cetera. But again, and like most places, our largest cost is public safety and public services, i.e. our DPW. All right, so that's the overview. And again, I can get back into more detail with that, but I'll turn it over to discuss the water and sewer budgets. There you are. Yep. So the remaining slides in here are specifically related to the water and sewer budget. And then, like I say, we can go through the actual budget document itself if you have specific questions, et cetera. So turn it over right now to finish that up. And again, if you have any more, so
Are you handling the clicker?
yeah.
Okay. Got a lot of paper right now. So, good evening, council. Good evening, residents. So, we wanted to do something a little different than we've normally done. Normally, I would get up here with the water department budget and read revenues line by line and expenses line by line and get to the bottom. A lot of numbers. Not really sure if people would actually follow it. So what we tried to do is follow what was done for the general fund and summarize the water department budget. And feedback that we received from Councilwoman Martin was she wanted to see some pictures and some graphs, numbers, put in the bar charts and the pie charts, just work a little different visually than they do with a bunch of numbers. It says this million for this million for that. So that was what we tried to do. Things that I heard was, one, the format of the budget need to be worked on. Two, be prepared to talk a little bit about a reduction in our rate. And three, talk about how we're going to do that with the ordinances and how we plan to get the money back in the door. And four was a little outlook on what the future could look like in the next couple years after these meters are in the ground and some of these things happen. So that's kind of what we've put together in our slides, and I will walk through them. And if you're in that, so in the packet that Carl had, our budget is pages 35, 36, and 37 in the original packet that was sent out.
You said 35, 36, and 37?
Yes, sir. In these forms right here, Councilman Shaw.
36.
All right.
37.
So
this budget right here.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. So first slide is we just want to do a revenue comparison. Started in FY22. You can see in FY23 we're just about $8.5 million, and then in FY24 we went up by 6.5% to about $9.2 million. And then we're projecting $10.5 million in 2025, and that's an increase in 12.7. So our revenues are made up of, we can go to the next slide, please. So our revenues are, these are kind of the major things. And so basically our revenues, for the most part, are rates. Okay, our rates are what compose the majority of our revenue. As you can see right here, our biggest opportunity and our biggest problem is stormwater. So of our revenue sources, 44% or just about $4.6 million is revenue for the city. It's also our biggest collection problem, which we'll get into a little bit later. In that 44%, you've got your customer stormwater charges that generate revenue for the city. Highland Park has their own stormwater properties that they have to pay. That's revenue in the department. You have land banks in this 44%, and you have MDOT in Wayne County. So the MDOT contract that we have is a revenue source to the city, and all those other things make up the lion's share of our revenue sources. The next largest revenue source that we have is our ready to serve charge. The ready to serve charge is just over $3 million. It represents 21% of the revenue source. The next is the water consumption. So these are our portions of the bill. So the water consumption portion of the bill represents about $2.2 million, or 21% of the city's revenue source. We've got 4%, which is the billing charge, and just a little explanation on that. Come here before people think the billing charge is just a charge that we just charge people for billing. That charge includes BSNA maintenance. It includes a portion of the labor for the clerks who collect the money down there. It is postage. It is some of the online fees that are associated with our online services. So that's really what the billing charge is. It's not like, hey, we're just going to charge you to send out a bill. There are tasks that are necessary to get the bills out. You have to review counts on a consistent basis. People call in, they want to know what their current balance are. You have to go into the system. We also have the Neptune system that reads every 15 minutes, instantaneous read. So people call in. That is a cost to having that software. People call in, want to know, my bill looks high, so you have to go into Neptune software, look at what's going on with the account, make adjustments as necessary. So that's what goes into that 4%. And then the other 2% are permit fees and customer meters. So very small percentage of the revenue is attributed to that. Next slide, please. So this slide is our expenses. You can see the lion's share of our expenses, our GLEWA bill. It's 57% of our expenses to the city, just over $6 million with this the new contract and the fixed fee. So that's $6 million. This is a little interesting because I think some people I've heard, people say, MCA and our fees. Well, we're 15% of the expense. The other 28% that you see rolled up on this pie chart are other things. The water and sewer maintenance repairs, you've got loan repayment, you've got depreciation, you've got buildings and structures, got the trust account. Like, those things are not MCA. I mean, those are water department expenses, but I want to explain to people what actually is MCA and what actually is the other portion of what's necessary to run the department. So our fee is the 15%. Spend a little bit of time on that. I've heard from Councilman Ashafi, I've heard from others, your rates got to go down. You got to do something with your expenses. That's what I've heard. So in FY23, which you can see back, I think it's on page 35, somewhere in there, those were about a little bit over $2 million. Okay. That's the water operations and us. So what is in the FY25 is 1.6, which is a $500,000 reduction in our fee, about 25%. So I've heard what people said, and I just wanted to show people this is what was signed on the 26th. Okay, so we're reducing our fees by 25%, but we have a lot more work that needs to be done. Another thing that we're going to do moving forward is, in the past, there's a lot to do. We've kind of tried to self-perform and do that. So we will not be doing that as much. We will be, those won't be our expenses. We'll be subcontracting it out and more managing the activities of others that are doing work for the city. So all these meters that go on the ground, all of that work, us as the water department will get more into an oversight role instead of doing it and overseeing it. So that's going to reduce the MCA costs. It's still going to be a cost to the city, but I just wanted people to understand what is actually MCA, see it on Facebook, and what is not. So I'm trying to explain the difference in what is our fee and what are other expenses that are necessary to run the department. So So that if that's, the rest of that pie is the expense that I'm referring to. And like I said, it's the maintenance of the water and sewer, loan repayments, trust accounts, cross connection programs, all things. If we weren't here, the city would still have those 28, those expenses if we weren't here. Next slide, please. So this slide is, this is just showing kind of where we were with GLEWA and where we're going. This slide is showing $4.5 million payment. You might remember GLEWA as part of the negotiations and mediation. Highland Park had to pay a $1 million kind of call it extortion fee, so that's a part of that. But if you look at what under the old contracts, what was being paid was $3.5 million, and we're going from $3.5 million to $6 million. So as long as we're purchasing water from GLEWA, there's going to be a substantial expense associated with that. And, we're responsible for helping the city increase the delta between those two. So that's our operating expense, but also finding revenue that we don't have, which right now, we get into that in a couple of slides, but it's about $2.3 million is out there that we can't collect, right? So if you added even 50% of that, 60% of that to the revenue, you would have a lot more operating capital to balance some of the expenses, which we could talk about the ordinances too. Right now, our ordinances are not set up in a way to capture the funds from the people who we need to. If we do it the way we are right now, we got to go to tax roll, everybody gets penalized. So you're forcing people out of their homes because we can't go, hey, we're going to put this on the tax roll for these people and the tax roll for these people. So what has to happen is we have to get into our ordinances, which there's been a lot of conversation about our ordinances from a zoning perspective to special assessment. All of the city's ordinances need a major overhaul, specifically for us in the water department from a collection standpoint, because we need to be able to levy special assessments on delinquent customers and have them be penalized and not have everybody be penalized. So that's also in here as well. Next slide, please. So this is showing the delta between the revenues and the actual expenditures. And you can see back in 22, the expenditures way high, right? Way higher than the actual revenue coming in. In past years, you've heard about the water department borrowing from the general fund. We're trying to correct that. Some of that was in the rate adjustment that we were forced to do at the end of last year. During that time, we had COVID in there, so our rates were fixed. They were flat. So you can see 22 to 23, there wasn't a rate adjustment, which rates are a big part of our revenue. So at the end of 23, you can see where the revenues are starting to increase, where we were mandated by the state and Treasury as a part of exchange for this deal that we had to do some rate adjustments. So you can see the revenue is starting to climb up between 23 and 24 and get more even with the expenditure. So that's what this slide is showing. Next slide, please. This is one that I really want to talk about. So this is the revenue loss from delinquent accounts. So the big orange on the left, the 52% is our commercial stormwater. So this is on the revenue slide, it was over 40% of our revenue. It's also 50% of the debt. Now you can see the residents there at 8%, and you see a little bit at 10, but that 10% of the revenue lost on the residential customers, because there's so many of them, is a much smaller amount. Like in this 52%, we're talking about folks, 50,000, a million, a lot of money. And right now, the way our ordinances are situated, we can't collect that. So you can see down at the bottom, that's $1.9 million of revenue that we are not seeing. And we need to, we won the lawsuit with MDOT. We've taken down some big people along the way, but we still have a lot of work to do when it comes to cleaning up the commercial. The other part of this is on the other side, you can see the tax exempt. So you have the land banks and the churches and other. So the tax exempt folks are also, we're not able to collect that revenue too. So you're seeing where we have a lot of problems. And when you look at our budget from expenditures and revenues, that we could be, like I said, even if we did 50% of this, we'd be $1.2 million to the bottom line, which would help the city tremendously. So that's what this slide is showing. I've heard many times, rates are increased on the backs of the residents and those types of things. And when I talk about those water ready to serve charges, right, that's based on the number of active accounts. So if you have more active accounts, that ready to serve charge gets dispersed amongst more people. Okay, so we have about 6,000 accounts, but we only have a third of them are active. So some of them are shut off, so they don't get the brunt of the ready to serve charges. So it's a combination of collecting this and getting more users so that those costs can get dispersed amongst a bigger group of people and not be the people who come to these meetings and the people who are currently paying the bills, because that's the people who are those residential active users. Next slide, please. So this is a list of what we believe ordinances need to be taken a look at. I'm not an attorney by any stretch, but I just went through the list of ordinances that all pertain to delinquent charges and the city's ability to be able to collect. Like I said, the most significant in my mind is under drainage and stormwater billing, where we're talking about how we handle in 1045, how you can handle delinquent charges and penalties. If you go over to the charter revisions, the chapter 10 of the charter speaks to special assessments. So I think that we need to take a look at that and get that vehicle revised in a way that we can put the special assessments where they need to be to help us get the revenue that we just had on the slide before. And then while we're in there, we need to get the water, chapter 1040, 1042, get that aligned with what we're trying to do in the other areas. So, I mean, these are some ordinance. CED's got a lot of them. I mean, I think some people might remember a few years ago, it came through with the overhaul of all the ordinances. I think it was, $20,000 or $30,000 to kind of take a look at everything. We're hoping that that's still something that the city is going to get into so that we can have the right rules and regulations in place and make sure that everybody's following the same thing. There's a lot of ordinances all over the place. Some that are online, some that are not online, some that are in paper. It's really hard to move forward and be consistent when everything is not updated and in one place. So I'm hoping that this year we'll be able to do that and participate, the water department to participate with legal along with CED and planning and zoning to get a robust overhaul so that we can move forward the right way. Next slide, please. So this here is, I could not really show the actual rates going down because some of that is out of my control, but I want to talk through a little bit of this just so people know, Gleeville will increase their rates at anywhere from 2 to 4% annually. So that's going to happen. That's not anything that we can run from. But what this slide is showing is the actual usage. So Gleeville right now is sending 1.6 million gallons per day to Highland Park, and we're selling 0.57. Okay, so that's significant difference in what we're selling based on what they're sending us. So the goal is to have them send less and us charge more. I mean, not charge more, but have more customers on. So if you look over in 25, we're really not going to see a change in that because we're trying to get these meters in the ground. But if you look at the difference between FY 25 and 26, we're saying that there's going to be a 26% drop in what Glee was sending. That means a couple of things. If the meter's in the ground, that just means that what we were getting before is really not what we should have been getting. But right now we don't have a metered system, so we can't really make that determination. But we think that the meters going in year one will show that 26% reduction. So obviously if they're sending less water, that's less expenditure to the city. Also, you can see from FY 25 to 26, we're projecting that we are going to get more users on the system. So when you start talking about ready to serve charges, that's based on users. So if you have more users then that takes the burden off of people who are here now and disperses that amongst the additional users. And what we want to have is more we want to have the amount of users increase as much or more than the decrease in the rate in the actual usage. Because you got to remember that with new users, you're gonna get consumption. So just because you're adding more users, you're actually using more water, but you're actually have more people from that ready to serve standpoint to disperse those charges on. If you look at 27, we're saying you're still going to see another 5% drop in the actual water usage. So that's our theft, that's our meters. And then you can see that we're projecting the users going up by 33%. So if you look at we try to do a little comparison showing the active accounts there. Today, there's 2,500 active accounts, and that the ready to serve is about 1,200 on that. And you can see as it goes down, as you add more accounts, that goes down. So you can see in 26, you're adding more accounts, ready to serve is going down to 912. In 27, more users, you can see it's going down to 684. So really, if we add the users that we're supposed to, you're dropping that ready to serve charge by 50%. That was the best I could do. I can't say, hey, we got the meters in the ground and the new rates are going to be X, because I don't control what Glewood does. And there's too many moving parts for me to be able to project that. But what I can tell you is more users, less projected use, more users on the system does equal the expenses going down, which would show up and be a benefit to the customers. So that's kind of my presentation of the budget in a much different way, instead of reading you line by line. I think it's a little bit more visual, and I hope it helps you understand a little bit more about what's going on in the water department. So that concludes my presentation. Yes, Councilman Shaw.
Mr. Sheffield.
Okay,
You're not
quick.
muted.
So on loss, on revenue loss and delinquents.
15 in the packet.
Yeah, it'd be 15. So on revenue loss from delinquent accounts. So you're telling us that church as well as the land bank and other are exempt under the tax exempt section you put here.
Nonprofits and churches are tax exempt. Is that your question?
Well, you have them under the tax exempt here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so this page says revenue loss from delinquent accounts.
Mm-hmm.
What is the other?
What the other percentage?
Yeah, what is that?
Hold on just a second here.
Because other should have a name. Other is like miscellaneous. I can't accept that one there. I need to know what that is.
So we got it's $25,000. I don't have that breakdown for you on what the other is,
Okay,
right?
that breakdown I'm going to need. So.
Okay, I can get that for you.
Okay. The land bank. That's lost revenue. They should be paying us.
They're not paying us. We've sued Wayne County and the state land bank, and they are not paying us. And that's one of the lawsuits that we've been wrangling. I mean, it's about $300,000.
And then the churches are at 11%, and they're not paying.
Not all of them, no. And it's mainly, so they're paying. What's happening with the churches is some of them have side lots, and they're paying their water bill, but the side lots where they have paid parking, which is stormwater runoff, those they're not paying. And it's not all churches, but they account for $45,000 of that. So right now we need a way to get get the land banks. And we've talked to Treasury about that and, them being a landlord in the city and not helping us out and getting us into trouble. I mean, that's lost revenue that we need. Other people are being burdened by that.
On the residential and commercial on the same page.
Yes.
The commercial loss is 52%.
Yes. In stormwater, 52%. I can give you, so like, for example, 91 Manchester right over here, $1 million. No stormwater. We're in legal, we're in a lawsuit with them right now. We sued them. We've done it at least once since we've been here and we're doing it again. That's $1 million. If you look at the old over here on Glendale, that's 56,000. The old high school and community college, 56K. I mean, so you've got a handful of people like that get to skate scot-free every year. And we in the city get the brunt of that and have to pay that. And so we need a way to get our ordinances aligned where we can bring them. And what we've been talking about is getting, for delinquent accounts, getting these assessed twice a year through special assessment and not necessarily through tax roll.
Okay. I'm gonna take you to FY 2025 expenditure source. Let's go back to that page. And for the record, Mr. Garrett, I know you didn't mean anything by it, but yeah, it's kind of, and it's so to a person's intelligence to assume that everybody may not understand it if you went line item by line item.
No, well, let me explain to
Okay.
you what I meant. Okay, so this sheet here, I'm not trying to insult anybody's intelligence.
I know you didn't mean it that way. I'm just saying the way that it sounded.
Okay, that was not the intent.
Okay.
I was trying to make it actually
Okay.
a
that's
little
not the
bit more
problem.
palatable so that people could understand it better.
Okay, so on this pie chart here, again, I'm looking at 1% other, and that's expenditures. I need to know what that 1% other is. I need to know what every single one of these others are.
Okay,
We're going to revenue source, page 11. Again, I'm looking at a 2% other. I want to know what that 2% other revenue is.
yeah, I can do that. I can tell you right now that on permit fees and customer meters and MIUs, which
Okay.
are, but I'll give you the breakdown.
Okay.
I'll make
Okay,
sure we
so,
have that.
so yeah, that's how it should be listed there, you know,
I can do
because
that.
other doesn't work for me.
Okay, I can do that.
Okay. What is the current expenditure for the facility you guys have on Woodward Avenue?
72,000 a year.
72,000. And that includes rent, lights, gas.
Yes.
Like that. Are y'all charging yourself water?
Yes. That's funny.
Okay, all right. So it's light, gas, rent. Okay. Rent, water. Okay. Does that include staff and salary?
Staff and salary is in the MCA fee.
And what is that?
The water department and staff fees are 1.6. That's at 15%.
It's up 15%.
Mhm.
Okay. Are there any other expenditures on that building than what you just mentioned to me? Is there anything that is a myth? Tools, equipment?
No, I mean, we also have No, we've got gas, electric, rent. Yeah, we've got all that. So no.
Okay. So 1.672,000. All together. Let's see here. And is this budget the current budget or the proposed budget or the projected budget of what you might have? Is this subject to increase?
This is the proposed budget, the FY 25.
Okay, so this is what,
Yes, that is that's what it should be.
okay, all right. Okay. All right, I yield back, Council President.
Thank you, Madam Pro Tem.
Hey, Mr. Garrett, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you explain the water sold and what is MGD?
Is there a particular page you just want me to give you?
I want page 13.
Okay, sure. All right, so first we start with MGD is million gallons a day. So that's our actual usage, our daily usage for the day.
The water sold.
So the water sold is our retail sale. So that's what we actually, when we run the bills, and we're running the bills based on a usage of 0.57 million gallons a day. So when those bills come out, that's generally representing 0.6 million gallons. But what GLEWA perceives they're giving us is 1.6. So you see the disparity in that, and we're being asked to pay for that. So that's why the meter conversation is a really big deal, because we believe that it's significantly less. Now, we understand that we have a 100-year-old system that we've only replaced 14 miles. We still got 45 miles to go, but we've been diligently repairing leaks and cracking down to the best of our ability on theft for quite a while now. And so that usage, it used to be, I can tell you a few years back, they said that we were using 3 million gallons a day. 3 million gallons a day, 8,000 people. That's part of what we've been arguing for the last 10 years, saying we can't use more water than Hamtramck. How can we use more water than Hamtramck? We're third of the size. Yes, it's old, but it's not that old. So it went from 3 down to 2.25. And this is with no meters, and now it's down to 1.68. So we've been in that battle that Legal and Kathy and everybody's been fighting. We've been producing information saying, this is not true. This is not true. This is not true. So now we're at the point where the state has funded us to put the meters in the ground. And now we get to see what the real deal is. So, it has to be done by 4/26 to 2025. Those meters have to be in the ground. And we anticipate seeing a huge drop in the usage, which means that, we could then say, well, you've got us on this fixed charge of X dollars, but you said we were using this. The meters are in the ground now. Look at the delta between what you said it was before we signed the contract to what it is now after we signed the contract. We need you to take that in consideration when this 2 to 4% increase comes the next year. We get to say our usage is down. These are all the things. We've replaced this many miles of water main. We got the meters in the ground. This is our use. And that's our leverage of trying to fight against that uphill battle of them wanting to increase our rates every year at the rate that they'd like to do that.
Okay, I have 2 more questions. Some blocks, especially across Hamilton that I've seen, where Highland Park cuts off in the middle of the block, there are 2 fire hydrants, like right side by side.
Okay.
Can you explain that?
All right.
I don't know if one belong now.
I'm guessing that one is on the Detroit side and one is because we would hydrants we usually wouldn't put closer than 400 feet from each other. So one here is somebody's in this jurisdiction and somebody's in that. And the distance probably went that way, but not to each other.
That was my concern.
Yeah, and there's nothing we can do we can't move that hydrant because it provides coverage the other way.
Right.
So it's a kind of a,
So
looks redundant.
For sure, it's one of them.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, my last question, do we still have a lot of vacant homes with running water?
Not as much, I would say when we got here, it was very bad.
Yeah.
And we had people who were living illegally in some of those homes. So what we do every month is we look at our what accounts are supposed to be shut off and where there's supposed to be usage and where there isn't supposed to be usage. It's kind of part of our theft program. We run that month. And so what we do is we try to compare where it's supposed to be vacant, but we're seeing usage. So then we have to go, we have to ride around and then we have to go and deal with that. So the short answer is not as many as it used to, but there's still a lot of work to do on the theft, because right now, part of that delta that we're talking about, some of it's theft, some of it's leaks, right? So some of that difference between that 1.6 and that 0.5 is legitimate, but we need to figure out how much of that. So the meters is part of it, theft is part of it, the leaks. So the leaks are going to continue to go down because we have to replace water main every year. So every year that's automatically going to go down. We got to continue to hammer on the theft program. And then the meters are going to say this is what's actually being used.
When you're saying that, does that include straight pipes, and how do you come back to that?
That's straight pipes. The only way that we can do that is check those accounts, make sure that they have the most current meter in there, and give us a reason to get in there and do an inspection so that we can find that. Because other than that, we can't do it. And sometimes if we know that there's occupants in the home and the usage doesn't look right, we will go and try to inspect those. So it's hard to get the straight pipes, but that's why we ride around and we got to look at that software on a monthly basis. That's just like something that we do, because you have to keep shipping on that shipping. We got this person off and then somebody else put one in over here, right? When we got rid of 2 straight pipes, somebody put one over here. That's an uphill battle.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Additional question? Ms. Martin?
First question, page 14. I see that, the expenditures, it's like 11,000, and then you have the revenue. What is that big dip that goes from like here? What's that dip?
So, okay, that dip is the expenditures being over $11 million going down to 9.5.
And so now
so that's the dip in expense that's expense being reduced is what that's showing.
Okay. And then so our revenue started to increase.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in. And then that was because of
and that was mainly because of the rate increase that we were forced to do at the end of last year. Part of the settlement agreement said, hey, you must update these rates to receive the money. So that is what that's representing.
Okay. And then page 15, we talk about land bank. So it seems like land bank is one of the biggest, we got 82%. My question to you is, do you think if those people back, if they're not gonna pay for the water, which would make a significant difference?
That's a very good, astute statement. Is I don't know what that process is if they're not paying the bill, and I don't know if we can go get those back from the land bank and then package those and give them to developers and make developments.
Right.
I don't know. Can we do that?
That's a good question. The good news is both the state and the Wayne County Lion Bank lost at the Court of Appeals.
Good.
And we have some settlements coming up. There's one today for Wayne County and they canceled, and then the state was coming up. But the fact is that we probably have a good opportunity now that the legal lawsuit is settled to sit down with them, to start maybe doing some horse trading. Because maybe there are properties that the city need to put into packages for developers.
Right.
So one of the things that's coming up here, we've been trying to get this together, but the lawsuit is in the way. The MEDC and the governor has put someone on the MEDC that's going to support Highland Park. the Wayne County Land Bank, the State Land Bank, HUD, MISHDOT, the city and Wayne County, forming a roundtable, a development roundtable, because we know that even we had a big disagreement with remember they wanted to tear down the houses, but they wanted to keep the land. So right now, we're moving into this great opportunity now to sit down, and council probably should have a seat on that development committee that we're trying to get convened. In fact, I talked to the state here recently, and they said they were we still want to proceed with that one bid we got from McKenna to help supplement some of our activities in community development. So this is a great time now to do exactly what you're saying, to sit down and do some horse trading and to see if we can get some of the properties we want, maybe get rid of some of the stuff that they don't want, or maybe some of the big properties, just so we can assemble something for these developers to come. It's a good opportunity now.
It was very good.
And then, page 17. You were talking about the fiscal year. You said that their company is 1.68, but my understanding our usage is 0.57.
You're correct.
Okay, so my thing is, we don't have all the meters in just yet, right?
We don't have any.
Okay, so where do we get 0.57, and then why are they not on?
So they are, well, the 0.57 comes from our actual bills. So we actually have the data to say this, we have all the customers and we have all the usage. So we take all the bills and tally out how many units we actually use and say that's this, and we've given them this information. And and at first they claimed when it was 2 MGD, they said, well, you guys never gave us any of that information. So yes, that's what they told us. So we gave them all of our retail sales and said, here you go. And they magically dropped the number down.
Okay, but not.
No, correct.
I would say not a significant amount.
Right. I mean, we've been working on it, and we're going to continue to work on it because, that's just lost revenue. That's just people paying for water that's not being used. I mean, you're gonna have some leaks and you're gonna have some theft, but it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be a 1 MGD spread. That's too big.
And then page 12. We're talking about the water customer service operations at 15%. And so you're talking about that the expenses, that's everything running the whole water department, correct? Is that correct?
Yeah, well, what I was talking about is our actual fee. So our labor, like when people say MCA, like that truly being, our hours that we're working, us and the people out in the field fall in that 15%. What I was trying to explain is everything outside of that are also expenses associated with the water department, but it's not necessarily us. So if you just looked at it and you looked at all of it together, you would say, well, gosh, you guys are, that the other is 2.9 million and us is 1.6. So you'd be like, wow, that's like $4.5 million. But it's not us. There are expenses that are part of running the water department that do not mean it's MCA getting paid. Okay, I just wanted to say that. But rent, gas, utilities, payments that are made out, that's all in the water fund, but it's not us. Like we get it all. Everybody just gets slapped on us and you say, hey, you guys are expensive. So my purpose of that was just trying to show that this is us, and this is our cost of doing business of running the water department. And no matter who you had in here, you're gonna be paying rent, you're gonna be doing those types of things. You're gonna be paying for your cross connection program. You're gonna be paying loans down. That's not necessarily MCA. But it's an expense of the water department. It all gets mixed together, and then people throw it out there. So I'm just trying to explain what all of that expense is.
So wasn't the water department in this building at one point?
Not in the last 10 years. It has not been.
But if we had to pay out more when it moved from being here to.
I don't know about that.
It was never in here. It was, you had a billing operator. Remember when the bills didn't go out?
Right.
There was somebody in the finance department who was not necessarily right person. But a lot has happened in the city because when the plant was operating, the water department was over at the plant. There was an administration building over there. And so a lot has happened over the last 20 years. You had, folks that may have reported out of the building, but the meters weren't kept here. You know, there were no supplies here because it wasn't really technically a water department. So it was kind of a mess. So one of the things that MCA did for the city was reorganize the actual physical water department. So we go up there, I don't know if you've ever been up there, they've got meters in the back, and somebody calls and they needed the meter, they're stored back there. MCA also provided all the vehicles. Those are their vehicles, and those vehicles are in their fee. We didn't have really any vehicles. You know, we had a whole lot of kind of old, run down, broken stuff. And so really they provided an infrastructure for the water department. Basically it collapsed, and the billing was really the casualty of that. But you've got that all back now. And so that's one of the good things that they were able to do for the city was restructuring. So when he talks about all these other things that are like the debt service for the loans and supplies, and you know, we didn't even have hydrants. I mean, we had broken hydrants all over the city, 500 broken hydrants. I mean, it was a complete disaster. But that's all changed now. And so moving forward, hopefully we won't be paying for 1 million gallons a day more than we're not using. And as we get that down and the meters go in, this is gonna be very interesting, wonderful time. I think things are gonna improve and all the costs are gonna go down, because now you're paying for 1 million gallons a day, but you're not even using.
Okay.
So these numbers are projected to change over time.
Yeah, I mean, just like, I mean, you know, I think it was, I don't know if it was for the right reasons, but you know, when people are talking about our fees being reduced, well, we're not where we were in 2015, right? It was water running everywhere. It was a break all over the place. We hadn't replaced any water main. So, you know, we've been slowly rebuilding the city, right? So, you know, really high expenses would be really high in that scenario. You're in an absolute disaster, right? So we've made a tremendous amount of progress over the last 10 years. So in theory, the fee should come down. It should get to a place where it should normalize, and it shouldn't be, it's not going to be at the floor, and it's not going to be where it was. We're going to get into this area where it's going to normalize, and that's where we're going to be. So, I mean, you know, people are saying, and we heard what they said, and I think they're correct about that. The fee can't be the same as it was 3 years ago when we've made progress. So I get that, even though we got a lot more work to do, I heard that. So,
Well, I want to commend you because we're going through our budget right now for the federal government, and there are no decreases. Local bread is 20% more, gallon of gas is 18% more. Everybody that is using anything has seen a significant increase due to inflation in their costs. The fact that you were able to shave 25, 30% off your budget, salute to you, because I don't know how you manage it. That the average person in their home is not able to shave that off due to inflation. So you're certainly worth your weight in water. How's that one? Yes, something else?
Yeah, I do. I do want to say thank you so very much for making the charts. I think you guys are fighting me against this. I'm able to see that at quick glance, so that's why thank you so much for the charts. Appreciate it so much. And then I was gonna add, yeah, I want to thank you. Are you guys gonna do this on a monthly, or this is just a yearly?
no, I mean, those are, we could do, I mean, we have the template set up, right? So we could come down to a monthly type of deal. I mean, it would be just in the package, you just have it and you could comment it on if you want, but it wouldn't be that robust, but we could, I mean, the template's built.
Off the top of the dome.
Okay.
Excellent. Ms. Manica, close us out.
I just want to say thank you first, but I did have a couple of questions and a statement. And some of my other questions have already been answered, but Mr. Ashafi asked you a question about rent and all of that.
Mhm.
And I wanted to be clear I was trying to understand the question. So was that asking, is that our expense? I mean, is that being charged to us? Is that what you were asking, Mr. Ashafi, or implying?
Well, I basically was asking, just what the general expense was, but that is a good question. Are we paying for that?
Yeah,
But we
I
would be
thought we
paying
were.
You're
more
right.
if we had all the things we used to have, like the water, you know what I mean? If we would still be paying that, if we had our own water department in the building, we still would be paying that.
I mean, you're gonna have an expense. I mean, if you can self-perform or you can consolidate, you would reduce your expense, right? So if you had a better space that was cheaper, you're still gonna have some expense, but it may not be where we are now. Right. I mean, Kathy pointed out some good things. We like being, by the police department. I mean, that location has worked out well. There could be, ways to change that. I mean, but then that would change operationally what's going on, and there might be some trade-offs and efficiencies and that kind of thing. But those are all type of things that we should be talking about on an annual basis and having a discussion. We're open to the discussion.
Well, we had that when we all was in that one place on Gerald. We had that whole little section. But anyway, and I think Ms. Martin asked my question about the land bank. Oh, tax exempt. They will always be tax exempt, right? Churches and nonprofits, which is in the other.
Yeah.
And what about the land bank?
But if we set up that special assessment, then that will reduce the amount of protection that they have.
Okay. What was my other question? Oh, my suggestion was that you guys set up a work retreat for the ordinance with all the people you named. And would the city council be part of that?
Well, I can tell you as a department head, we would participate. We need to participate because there are things.
I know you would.
That CED and zoning are doing that show up in the water. So if it's a workshop, we're there. We want the ordinances is a deal.
Work retreat, not workshop.
What's a work retreat? What's that?
Parameters. It's a Saturday with only the necessary people.
Okay.
Working on the ordinance and whatever else before.
Councilwoman Manning, I'll go one step further. What the state has asked you to prepare a transition plan. Basically called me up like, you ain't going nowhere till you prepare a transition plan. And I thought, I didn't even comment on that, because I thought this is a free country. But there's so many ordinances. Council it's council's job, legislative job, ordinances. I think that a retreat is not going to cut it. What needs to happen is there needs to be a schedule, and council needs to determine which ordinances they want to tackle when. So one of the things that I'm putting in this plan is all of the ordinances and that whole proposal of the Muni Code. Because that was a company that was going to come in and facilitate this. Because it's too much of a burden to put that on the council and say, here, do the ordinances. They really need structure and an organized approach to do it. And they really need Muni Code to do it. Back in the day, it was Justinian. And so that's one of the things that, I'm gonna put together in this long list of things. And in my mind, it's things the city, needs to get done over the next 5-10 years. But because of Saturday's not gonna cut it.
Well, I know it's gonna take more than one Saturday, but I brought that up before. So if you're gonna put it in play, do we have to bring it back to the table? Or it doesn't have to because you're gonna put it in play based on that?
What I'm gonna do is, because really, Highland Park's at the point of we go forward. Where do we go from here? Now that we've beat all these dragons, and Saturdays are not good for people. because people who work at the city have lives. And so spending Saturdays, every Saturday from now until the eternity is not really good.
It's not gonna work for me.
So there just needs to be more of a plan, and then that way council can deal with it accordingly, according to the way they see fit. It's not, being imposed on council, but broken up where council can deal with issues as they need to deal with them, because you can't do everything all at once. Council may have some things that they want to get done immediately. Some things that could wait a while. We know that the revenue is an important thing. That's something to get in place now. And so, but I'm gonna be talking and meeting with council and giving them that stuff. I asked Councilman Ashafi last week if he had things that he wanted me to include in the transition. He told me to let him think about it. So that's what's going on.
Okay, well, folks, thank you very much, Mr. Garrett.
Thank you.
So that covers our agenda for tonight. This was the proposed, this is a review of the proposed budget by the department heads. And this is a special meeting. I'm sorry.
We did have some questions for Carl. I thought
the
Carl
general
was gonna come
fund.
back to us.
General fund.
Yeah, I thought Carl was gonna come back to us.
Okay, Carlos, let's go ahead and wrap this up.
Okay.
Some of us got jobs.
So the general fund. Thanks, Carl.
Okay.
So this, where, can we talk later about?
We're gonna keep it brief, Carl. I got another point.
So Carl, I'll make it quick because everybody's trying to get out of here.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And just remember too, we're gonna have a public hearing at your
Right,
next
exactly,
meeting.
exactly.
And so more
there's
questions
No
as well.
reason to drag this up. because
Okay,
we Get it done at the public meeting.
Sure.
Okay, so in here, Carl, I want to emphasize, and this also goes to Mr. Garrett as well, okay? Under no circumstances do I want to see miscellaneous in here. I want to know what the miscellaneous is. I don't like it. I don't like other. I don't like miscellaneous. You have a lot of things in this budget that are listed miscellaneous. What is miscellaneous? I need answers for that, and I need those answers before we have the public hearing on the 20th, okay? Now, I know you're busy. I get that part, you know what I'm
No
saying?
problem.
Sometimes you get back to me, sometimes you don't. The same thing for Mr. Garrett. I need those answers before the public hearing on Monday, the 20th.
Yeah, I just want you to be aware, the miscellaneous / other, that's what the state, those are the accounts the state tells us
Okay.
to put in there.
Okay.
Because at some point, even on the slides you saw there, it's only a little sliver of what's going on. So,
Okay, yeah.
so this
I
isn't
didn't
us
know-
coming up with those. We have the required ones and then the state just has another line for other / miscellaneous.
Yeah, I
Okay.
need to know,
I will
Carl,
take a
what
look at
that
it.
is, please.
Sure.
And I'm done, Council President. I'm done.
Okay, having concluded all business related to the special meeting, the chair will declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you. 7:14.